today I have the luxury to be able to have an interview with one of the biggest tiers in the D4DJ Groovy Mix community. And especially, and even then, if some of you also don't know this person, you might have known this person in the combo contest as well, from SB Philos 4's Unga D4DJ combo contest, where this person made top 3. Enough of that, let's introduce our guest. Welcome, Sig, to the Chuni Clan.
Thank you very much.
So, let's get started with the interview. I kind of already touched upon some of your achievements, but let's talk about you. Tell us more about yourself, like kind of your resume, especially within the tiering, and how long have you been playing D4DJ Groovy Mix?
Oh yeah, sure. So I've been playing D4DJ since about December, literally 6 months ago. So it was right when the Mermaid Maid event was ending. That's when I picked up the game, and within a couple of weeks I started looking at the Discord, the pub cord that was advertised from some of the tiers at the time, and so I joined it. And after I joined it, I started watching for like tips myself on how to get good at tiering. I'm pretty much a whale, an established whale in the game, and so I was looking to see how I could quickly get up there and start tiering myself. As a tierer, I come from the Bandori scene. That was my first like real gacha game where I started investing time learning how to tier.
All right, cool. That was actually my second question: is if you had any prior rhythm game experience. With that as well, do you focus on just other types of rhythm games as well, or have you just been hard focused on Gurumiku? And also, what's overall your focus? Why you decide to focus on Gurumiku overall?
Oh wow. Okay, so rhythm games, I go pretty far back, back to when I was maybe 12 years old. That's 16 years ago, so you can do the math. I'm almost 30 years old now. So Dance Dance Revolution, when they came out on home consoles on the PlayStation 2, that was my like big go-to game. I got really good at that stuff. Started going to arcades, playing a ton of that. Eventually Pump It Up came out. I started getting good at that as well. I became deeply invested in rhythm games. I got stuff like Rhythm Heaven and Osu Tatake Oendan, which eventually becomes the modern version called Osu to this day. So yeah, I invested quite a bit of time in other rhythm games leading up to this point as well. As for why specifically D4DJ, it is a gacha game, and because it's a gacha game, I think as a whale, it's good to focus on only one or two that you want to seriously commit to, because not only are you putting time and money into it, but you get a lot more value out of it than if you try and split your time among a bunch of games. To me, I call it daily slaving, honestly. If you have a lot of gacha games, you basically become a daily slave, and it sucks.
I can definitely feel that. A lot of Bushiroad games, especially, at least on my end. But yeah, it's overall seeing like the fun of rhythm games overall. So let's actually go back towards your resume. Let's talk about the daily or what's your drive to get into Podium, because I think recently you had 2 cases that you made Podium, if I'm not mistaken.
I've gotten top 1 3 times in a row.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And the drive for it actually came from starting to tier back in the Bandori times. Every tier starts out small. You can't just expect to go straight for Podium. You gotta do it a few times and get comfortable with it. And then once you start to see like what your body's limits are, how the competition is, who you're going to be facing against, you can start to judge, okay, I can realistically go for Podium now. So my drive to getting Podium here actually stems from trying to get titles back in the Bandori days, although I only did pubbing. So when I came to D4DJ, I started really getting involved with the community because I wanted to try the private room aspect. unfortunately, D4DJ didn't have private rooms at the time, so that just led me
Yeah.
to think, okay, I'm just gonna at least be in touch with the community. They're like hyping up private rooms. It's coming, so I'll at least get myself set up for it. I established myself in the community, and then I was able to get really involved with it. I'm like, I'm willing to put money and time and effort. I want to work with you guys. I want to do this. So all the people in the community helped me get to where I am now.
Ah, that's very great, and especially we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that at the end if we want to give some shout outs, especially because we've seen that you're very active within the community as well. All right. So with that being said, now that we got some of the opening questions out of the way, let's get to the nitty gritty. So this is kind of like your stage of where you want to go explain some thorough advice. So what kind of advice would you give to people tiering?
Okay. Yeah, so this was the open-ended question that you kind of gave to me to really like explore a couple of ideas when it comes to tiering. So I'll split it into two like major sections. One is the tiering for players that are looking to get I would say even up to top 100. That's a pretty for casual players, you can do top 100 once and you won't feel like overwhelmed by it. It might be tough at first, but it's not the most difficult thing and is doable as a good goal if you're trying to tier in this game. But for the lower tiers, a lot of times what happens is players try to conserve as many resources as possible, which I can understand because you only have so many cans and stamina and such. And but in my opinion, you kind of want to try and establish your goal beforehand and say, I really want to commit to this. Usually you don't know what tier you're going for because every event fluctuates. Very busy events, you might not even hit top 1,000 because so many players are just investing resources into it. And maybe for weaker events, you can even get a top 100 like almost for free. But what you want to do is know how many hours you're going to spend and then actually commit to that. So, and that goes for the higher levels of tiering as well. It's the planning process that really matters. But when we start talking about like top 10, top 3, top 2, and top 1, the number of hours you need to spend gets into the hundreds. And when you reach that level, that is when you have to start thinking about how are you gonna when are you gonna eat, when are you gonna sleep, and how are you gonna deal with your competition? Because a lot of times when you're fighting for podium, you're gonna have one or two people who are just never gonna stop. They're gonna be on your tail the whole time. So you have to have a plan going into that. And what I usually do is since I was planning for the T1s, I actually planned to do 2 T1s in a row. I did not expect to do 3 T1s. So I'll get back to that, the third one, which was my emergency planning. But for the first 2, I did plan them out. So when I was starting to tier the first event, which was one of the D4 Fest medley events, I'll talk about medley in a second because that's actually a pretty big deal. I had about 6,000 cans worth, and so I needed to actually get rid of them because if I didn't get rid of them, I would just have a surplus of cans for God knows how long. I was waiting for Happy Around and Mooney events to show up, and they were not coming. I had to tier something at this point. So I settled for the D4 Fest event, and to prepare for it, I looked at how many hours I would be playing, and it was over like 160, I think. So I thought to myself, okay, usually you want to give yourself 30 to 60 hours of time in the first run, the start dash as they like to call it. And after you do that, you can pretty much clean out any of the competition and see who's actually trying to play. So I went ahead and did my start dash, and eventually we saw, okay, there were only like 2 real contenders. Usually once you weed them out, it becomes very easy to know how you're gonna play because you have your gaps established. And what I mean by gap is like if you're playing the entire time, you should, in theory, have the most points if you're using the most efficient teams and playing the most efficient like meta songs, then you will be at the top, objectively. But it's just a matter of how long you can play. So you have to measure your gap and determine how fast are my opponents playing, and that determines how much time you have in between. So maybe you have like 2 hours of rest. And for me, I had about, I think it was a 3-hour gap or something. It was pretty lenient.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much trouble doing that first event.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Sometimes
as
you could even get like quickly burned out too as well if you try to go hard sprints, which I've seen people do, where they try to go like, let's go fluctuate everything, try to make that gap. But even then, you're also not just competing against other people. You're competing thoroughly against the world at this point, considering the JP server is just a behemoth at the moment.
Right, I agree. So establishing the gap and maintaining the gap, that was pretty important. It gives you a lot of time to decide, okay, when can I auto? And auto is very interesting in this game. I abuse auto a lot. What I tried to do for all of my tiering events, the 3, is once I got ahead, I started just autoing a lot and then sleeping in between the autoed games. And I wouldn't say it's as effective as actual sleep. It actually doesn't help that much until you've done it for hours and hours and hours.
That's true. Yeah.
But it does give you that ability to recover without losing like any points. It's better to never stop than to shut down and then your opponent gets a lot of ground on you.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like events such as I remember the first poker events, I learned that auto was actually a strategy, and not just that. It's like you don't even have to like look at your screen. Some points you can just play auto, do your homework, do some work, basically, and that's like a strategy that a lot of digglers have been utilizing as well, with utilizing auto. But you do make a pretty good point as well to see the worth, which is a nice insight.
I think auto is actually a little overpowered. It has so much. Once you have the lead, you can auto and be very comfortable for a very long time before you have to actually play again. And so I utilize that strategy a lot. My opponents, they would have to play like 80 or 90 hours of manual if they want to catch up. And then at any point in time, I could just choose to play manual again, and they'd fall behind again. It was just that rough. And speaking about the event types, both poker and medley are, well, actually medley's a little interesting. I'll get back to that. Poker's very tame though. There's not a lot you can do to really change the outcome of poker.
Yeah.
Recently in bingo, we're kind of disappointed that bingo doesn't have private rooms. But what we're really happy about is bingo got rid of that groovy time, and now it's solely dependent on your playing skill. Now bingo is very favorable towards stronger players.
I mean, looking at it, like, if you remember the past meta, where everyone was utilizing the boost tickets as well, that was also a big, thorough jump and had a giant fluctuation, as I remembered. I remember trying to tier bingo, and then it was like, one time I see, like, I'm, like, very high in the table, the next day it's like, oh, you're, like, all the way outside, like, super outside. So, it's been a pretty interesting evolution with bingo, and as well, very good rewards, too.
And I think we'll touch on it later about if the tiering has helped me at all in my playing skill. Yeah, we'll get back to that because I have something interesting about the raid event specifically when it comes to stuff like that. For long-term tiering, I didn't talk much about like what I actually eat yet. No, you don't really have many options because the amount of downtime you get per song is maybe a total of like 15 seconds. That's maybe enough time to like open up something and munch on it once or twice, maybe. And then you're back to playing, especially if you have to do manual. I actually avoid trying to ever auto, especially at the beginning, because
I
you
can
just
see
want to
why.
get in that lead, right?
Yeah, to like build
So
your status at the start, and like if you go auto, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage because everyone's gonna like start sprint, which is what I've noticed, and not look back.
yeah, so I actually am still very much happy with getting like fruit shakes. I actually make a whole bunch before I start every event because those I can just drink down and I'm happy. They energize me and they're sweet tasting, and I just you can make them in bulk because I just buy a bunch of fruit, sometimes vegetables, and grind them all in one day, and then boom, just a bunch of shakes and stuff. So that's my favorite. I can just go out and buy. I haven't tried like protein shakes, but I would buy like sparkling water and stuff because that just like gives you a little bit more of a wake up feeling when you drink those kinds of things, or like something with really high amounts of like vitamin C even. I kind of like that as well, or tea. I think coffee is an okay substitute, but I prefer tea personally.
That is a pretty nice insight actually to get not just the insides of the game, which a lot of people talk about, but like yourself as like a individual to get more of like the outside perspective. And I kind of really like this note that you have in your advice for tiering because not many people really think about this overall, and especially like if you're just flat out like, oh, I don't know if I can just let her do this. Planning through is pretty nice overall. So that's pretty cool that you have like a not just a plan in the game but outside the game.
Tiering for top 1 takes so much preparation outside of the game. I have to make sure, well, my living area is like cleaned. I'm not gonna be able to do anything to my room for a week, and I know I'm gonna trash it because I'm gonna be eating food and throwing away like wrappers and cleaning up messes if like I have a spill during it. Like it just happens every time. I have a thing of paper towels next to me. I have like charging banks in case like I lose power. There's just so much like preparation I do because everything can and will happen.
Has there been an instance of that, for example? If I do mind asking.
I've lost power maybe 3 times during one of the events. However, I have my phone just stays on the mobile hotspot and my devices connect to it. So I actually use data. I don't even touch the Wi-Fi because if that goes out, I lose all connectivity for that game, which I'm going to afford. So I don't even trust it. I connect to my phone and play that way. So in terms of actual analysis as well, when we're talking about higher tier tiering and watching your opponents, there are a couple of ways to keep track of players. The easiest way is if you have like a computer or second device, you just pull up that leaderboard, right? You can just pull it up every once in a while. Anybody like you really think is suspicious, you just like write down some numbers. But as of late, myself and another particular member of the community have been working on tools to suddenly make this data like more public and available. And if you don't mind, Megane, I would like to
share screen.
Like show. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
like
no
to
problem.
show a little.
You can
What
just share it here.
we
I believe that also this is a data similar to how School Idol Festival people used to rely on in I believe on Twitter, that there used to be a post kind of like this. I believe I'm not much in the know, but I do remember that this was something that was like highly talked about, is more open data, which is very nice as well because a lot of people have been focusing a lot on the streaming side, or not streaming side, the tiering side of things.
We have coined this the Mooney Web.
How
and,
on brand.
Yeah, and what our objective with this was to create some kind of like live tracker that we can go and watch certain players or maybe just watch overall how the tiers are moving. And this board is like constantly updating. It's actually updating live right now. You can actually see
Wow.
tiering right now.
Hi, whoever's in the chat. Hi, who's in the chat? You can whoever just finished their song. Y'all can give some good examples here because actually that's very up to date too. A lot of the just nows. That's a lot of just nows. So a lot of people are playing right now. So hi everybody that's playing.
Yep. So what we can do here is it shows us how much they're updating, their change in points, and what we're really looking for are those bigger numbers. So like this person's getting plus 3,000. That's a little sus. As in sus as in we need to pay attention to them because they're probably playing something very important or like a higher meta or something, right?
Ah, yeah.
We want to see the players that know the meta and those who don't, because that determines basically who are our real competitors.
Yeah. And this is without knowing the teams, without team knowledge, right? Because some could be utilizing a lot of high boost, and as you said, some could be utilizing like high song, as well.
That is correct. Yes. We would be able to tell over time by watching how often they update. But yeah, this is all like historical data on players and positions over time. And yeah, we can also head to a nice little graph.
Oh wow, that's
just
so
showing
cool.
how it's just showing how everybody's updating, and we can keep an eye on things. So you can see I'm actually this purple line. It becomes a pink line because Hifumi takes the place of me. He's doing his daily today as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's doing multiple dailies. That's just his thing. And we also have data on all previous events that we've tracked. When I got into this community, none of this data was being tracked. I was a little upset because I'm a tierer and I like to see this kind of stuff. I want to see like these cool charts. I want to see like the progression of events over time, right? So like we can go to another medley event and we can look at, oh, this is where I actually thought of the schedule I want. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna go to light mode because it's easier to see these lines here.
Okay, I'm sorry everybody that doesn't like light mode in the chat. Discord users.
Yes.
Anyways.
Right. This is actually where I first decided on my strategy for medley, because this is the first time I got a visualization of how a medley player plays. This wasn't me, by the way. This was somebody else. Funny fact. This guy, Seth Bio, who got number 2 on this event, he autoed the whole event because one of his hands was broken.
Impressive. This is pre-boost. Is this pre-boost or post-boost?
Ooh.
Because because sometimes like you can utilize like the boost tickets every single time, but a 5 can is also pretty strong still, I believe. Post? Okay. Thank you, chat.
Yeah. Point wise, it should be the same. The only difference will be what units or characters are involved. That's usually what determines how strong an event is. But you can see here, this is actually a pretty like noticeable pattern. They would play, do their grind, go to sleep, and when they wake up and they're fresh, they would just burn their tickets. And then once they're done, they're back to doing their normal play and so on and so forth. So this gave me the template for, oh, okay, this is how a medley player could play. It gave me ideas, right? And then for my run, I actually took it to the extreme and did it in like half time. So I would spend 2 days building up tickets, and then I would burn them all, and then I would spend 2 more days building up and then burning all. So this is just half as many of those staircases as that other player did. And this was my first T1 that I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I went, it was pretty funny how the discussion went, but it wasn't my intention to do 3 T1s in a row. But what ended up happening was when Gotobun was released, it had Mooney in it. I'm like, this is it. I have to take... The first event, I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just getting rid of some cans. I had 6,000 cans. It was too many.
I assumed side note. I assumed you farmed Nino, right? Just the entire Nino thing, or did you try to mix it up with all 5? Because all 5 were pretty competitive. I believe.
Right. I believe the stats ended up being like 45 times I did Nino for the whole
Wow.
event, and the rest were only like 10, 15 at most.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's
So
pretty on
that
brand.
was really yeah, that was really interesting. But this is the first time you can really see like my endurance really kicking in. If you look at the top one line, it actually goes on for 3 days straight
Wow.
before I get a nice 12 hours sleep and then continue onward.
That's a great
Um,
That's very good consistency, I have to say.
But I will say it's not necessarily consistent. So some players were like, how can you play for so long? But if we start zooming in, you might notice the line actually does start to taper off. And this is because I started utilizing that auto strategy we talked about. So as we go further and further along, this all just becomes like auto plays over and over and over. But since I had such a big gap, even though this player Mar here was gaining on me, they auto still gives lots of points, and in my opinion, auto is still pretty overpowered. When you have the lead, you can maintain it for a very, very long time, and you can see the power of it here. More than half of like the second half of this is just autoing. Um, and they even like had to stop playing at some point because they're like they were probably just really tired at that point. Like, let's be real, this is 3 days into the event. You're gonna get tired for sure. And as we move on, you can see the second line actually gets even more tapered off. It gets worse. That's when sometimes I would start taking risks. I would try and play manual, even like one game of manual, right? Like,
Yeah.
give me one good game of manual, and I can't get through it. It was like, it was starting to become suffering because I haven't talked about like the mental effects of doing this for so long are yet. And it was quite the journey, because if I was doing 1t1, yeah, it's gonna suck. I'm gonna have to play a lot, but it's not the worst thing. Once you're done, you're done. But for someone to go for 3t1s, all of a sudden they're looking at a journey where they're playing for more than 500 hours in less than a month. And so during this second event, I really started to feel the effects of mental fatigue. And I wasn't even like 30 something hours into this run when I finally started to experience hallucinations for the first time. I didn't actually know what hallucinations looked like or felt like before, because I've never had to play for so long. And so I started to see some really weird things. No longer was the playfield like straight anymore. It was crooked. Like, it would always tunnel to the right or to the left. The notes, they would always come in from different directions. Sometimes they come in from the roof. I don't really know how to explain that one. Or sometimes the playfield would be bumpy. And the entire background of the playing field would start like moving or become something entirely different. Usually what would happen is I would go on like some kind of journey. We'd like go out into like the mountainside or something. Like, you would see the notes come flying in, but I would be like watching an ocean or a sea or like something really random, and it was kind of hilarious and spooky at the same time because I'm just seeing these notes floating over this this setting, and it gets really bizarre. As for how I maintained my like control during that time, I actually found a pretty effective trick. I knew in my head that this was just the playing field of the game, and in the background are these dancing chibis, the characters. And so when I lost focus, what I would actually do, I'd be like, "Where's the chibi?" I would just say that in my head, because the moment I said that, I would look for one and I'd find it, and the stage would naturally start restoring itself once I found one of the dancing characters. Because that was my only way I could recover after the field gets completely warped. So I would have to do this multiple times every single game. so that I could survive. Um, your accuracy gets so bad after you have been playing for hours and hours. Um, but luckily, what I learned, this is very recent actually. I've been doing sleeping for this particular event we're in right at this moment. I've been doing 1 and 2 hour sleeps. This is probably the first time where I'm purposely trying to sleep for the event instead of pushing through it with just autoing and doing that micro nap thing I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good because when you wake up, you can actually like perfect FC stuff again. I think it's just because your body is able to do some of the recovery it needs to do. Whereas if you're just micro napping, you're literally just buying time for your brain before it has to think again. It doesn't have time to do any recovery or REM sleep or anything. Like just one REM cycle, 1.5 hours is all you need, and you feel good again. And that's kind of what I noticed. I also have a like giant speaker I have set up next to my bed, and what I did was I have a laptop over there hooked up to the speaker, and I set it really loud, and I would join a like Discord voice channel. We have this thing called MiyuBot, which I'll brush up on in a little bit here. I'll show on screen a little bit of the features of MiyuBot. But what I would do is I would attach the speaker to it, and then if I fell asleep, like they notice I wasn't immediately rejoining the next room, they know I like blacked out or something. So they would start like spamming the stamps from the MiyuBot, and that would wake me up, like the kawaii stamp or something. So that's one way they got me to wake up. They also could hop into the voice channel if they really needed to and yell at me, and that usually would get me up as well. So I did try to make countermeasures to if I fell asleep without myself knowing. Unfortunately, it didn't always work either. I'd instinctively do like a snooze thing where I'd hit mute on the laptop after the guys would be spamming the stamps. I'm like, okay, and I'd hit mute, and then I'd forget to unmute it later, and that would cause problems. But that was few and far in between. Let me show another quick little thing here. This site was one I used a lot earlier. It's just the this is more of a crude site showing like just the chart data and the numbers. And this was made before that Mooney web. It was with the more crude version. And again, it just has a chart. This is just a like quicker way to just see just the chart visualization. And also I did mess with some like projecting algorithms to try and figure out exactly if this person or this tier goes on at this pace. This is about what the ranking is going to be. And you have to kind of adjust based on how busy the event is. If it's a busier event, expect that prediction to actually be correct, because that's what I base it on, a very busy event. But if it's like a more tame event, then you can expect that prediction to slowly taper off as the system realizes, okay, maybe this event is not as active as we thought. So these numbers are actually pushed into a MiyuBot, which I will just briefly go over because there's a couple of features of MiyuBot that I think some people don't they either don't know about or they haven't really like experimented with it. It's kind of just a good tool overall, and this hopefully you can see. Let me switch this, and then hopefully you can see my Discord real quick.
Okay. There we go.
All right, so you should be able to see my Discord now. I am in a private conversation with the MiyuBot. The MiyuBot is available on the D4DJ pubcord. While you are there, you can also see they have an invite link in their status profile, so you can just actually go to this Discord and grab an invite link. And if you hit !invite, the bot will actually give you an invite link to invite the bot to your server. So that is another great way to get MiyuBot for yourself or for your friends if you like want to use it a lot. Why do you want to use this? Well, for one, it has some great features like the leaderboard itself. You can view this at any time thanks to MiyuBot getting the same data from the websites we have been utilizing for it. Also, you may want to check out the scoring features of MiyuBot. Let's say there's a song and you want to know if like one team you're using is better for score than another. So you can type !score, and we're just gonna use Synchro Gazer. It's a very popular meta song for poker and bingo events. We'll do Synchro Gazer. You can type a difficulty afterward, like score Synchro Gazer hard, and you can then type power equals and put in your power number. Let's see, my team has 217,880 power. Then you'll get results, very detailed actually, on what your max score potential is if you were to play multi-live and get Groovy. What if you played auto? What if you did it solo or without Groovy? Like you can also tweak this to base it based on skill. So your skill power can be let's say a 50 and then 40s. Maybe you have an initial. And there are 5 skills in the game. For those that don't know, the game will always use your DJ, your lead, to activate as the last skill in the game. So your DJ will always be the last skill as well. So if you put like a birthday lead, which has a 50% skill up, that 50 will also always activate at the very end. And by inputting like these values, you can actually get the bot to display exactly what kind of scores you can expect as well. MiyuBot also comes with charting features, so you can type in, again, a name of a song and a difficulty, and you'll also get the the chart itself. And yeah, there's like buttons, so you can look through the different difficulties of charts. I think it's loading. I clicked them, but it didn't do anything. Oh well. Usually the buttons would work. Maybe it's bugged right now. And this MiyuBot was actually created by one person who I personally call him Kwe. But he does have a Ko-Fi. So if you wanna you know, just like go into that Discord that Miyu has, and if you really appreciate what he's done so far and you want him to keep working on it, maybe you could throw him a tip every once in a while. It might help motivate him. Just saying, you know? What these people do is amazing. We've been working hard to get more and more tiers, like the information they need to make tiering more successful overall. Beyond that, I do want to touch on quickly the specific like tips for each type of event type. So I already mentioned poker doesn't have too much. We already you might have seen Synchro Gazer gets picked a lot. That's to be expected because Synchro Gazer is like one of the most meta songs in the game currently. The reason it's the most meta, you can look at the duration and it's 148. It doesn't even hit 2 minutes long. You can play it on hard difficulty and it gives almost the same score as EX. In terms of expert, for those that are trying to play expert or learn it, you need to be able to full combo. If you miss a note, you're basically getting the same score as you do on hard for like 5 times the effort. It's not sustainable if you're going to tier for more than a couple games, and it's very difficult to full combo every single time. But if you can do it, hey, more power to you. You get a little more EP per game, like just barely. But that brings me to the raid event, because the raid type of events, for those that recall, you get to choose like a raid boss, and then you have like leaderboards on them. And people like to tier for these leaderboards because you get cool titles, right? We had Monster Hunter so far and Gotoboon, and both of those events, there were top 1, top 10, top 100s. It's basically like the dailies, but they're a lot shorter. They're like bite-sized pieces, except for that one dragon that took a very long time to kill. But anyways, during those events, we actually had some really cool, like, Japanese players come out and race some of the people from the overseas servers. And it was really neat because they'd all pick Synchro Gazer EX. And so it was like a test of who could perfect full combo or grateful combo these songs over and over for like that extra 10-point update per game or something. It was great and exciting. It was like it was super challenging to race them. And we had folks that could uh go up against them, and the Japanese players had folks that could go up against us too. I think that was really exciting, and I think Raid introduces some of the most like hype esports, if you will, action of all the events. So I think that's really cool. Um, Other than that, Raid is just for overall tiering, it's just a poker event. It's the same deal. You just score points playing meta song. And then we get to bingo, which is a little more interesting because not only do you get more EP for matching like your characters and attributes, but you also get more power. So all of a sudden, if you are like a whale, and if you can play the harder songs, you can actually beat most players like every time and get 200 more EP than everyone else like every single game. And it's great because it means that if you're an actual good player, tiering a bingo event is a lot easier for you. It also means that if you auto, it really sucks because you miss out on like 400 extra bonus points every time. Yeah. And then we have Medley. Medley's been really interesting, and we we have a lot of strategies for Medley that are so powerful that we can't discuss them because they are actually too powerful. But what we can tell you is that in Medley, you have some of the most interesting choices for meta. Because if you have a private room, you got 4 people that can pick 4 different pieces of different songs. So you look at like MiyuBot and you have like different sections of different songs. Like I could type in sections. Here's the light, and we can see it actually shows the chart, the times, like the durations, and the combo counts of that particular all those sections. And you have to figure out like among every single song in the game and every single different like piece of chart, which ones come together. And the game even has like a certain ordering for the songs too. For those that don't know, you can just go into medley yourself like solo, and you can auto sort them, and it will give you the correct order. MiyuBot actually has that feature too. Like if you were to do something like Give Me Awesome, Synchro Gazer, we have the type difficulties too, I think. No, maybe not. Awesome, Synchro Gazer, I'll do like Here's the Light, and let's throw in like Illusion 99 or something. And MiyuBot does have the feature to tell you the order it's in. So this can help you a little when you're trying to figure out pieces, because if you don't really pay attention to how medleys work, they have 3 different sections. The first song always gets the beginning section, the next 2 songs always gets the middle section, and the last song always gets the ending section. And that's what creates the entire medley chart. So let me see if I can do this real quick too. If I can chart the mix, did I make a mix? No. You can make a mix in MiyuBot too. So I will just take what I wrote here, and I'm gonna add some difficulties. I'm just gonna add EX to all of these. So I'm taking Give Me Awesome EX, Synchro EX, Here's the Light EX, and Illusion 99 EX. And it's just gonna give me what the overall chart will look like. This is where MiyuBot becomes like really powerful. It tells you the exact combo, how long it's gonna be, its level. Like this is really helpful if you're trying to piece together a medley and like figure out stuff. I noticed guys in the public D4DJ Discord recently, like they've been trying to find like the shorter songs and like piecing together the medleys. I'm like, if you utilize this, you can really like you can see visually if what you're doing is like working or not by just validating it in MiyuBot. So these are just all tools that I think could come in handy if you need to play around with it a lot. I think with that's pretty much like all the high-level advice I would have for tiering in general.
Get to these rapid-fire questions pretty quickly.
Okay, sure.
All right, let's I guess just go over. What has been the hardest part about tiering?
Ooh, I will definitely have to say it was the mental part. I already discussed it earlier. Once you get far enough into it and you start having to deal with the hallucinations, the constant struggle to just stay awake for even like one song, it one thing I wanted to mention real quick, I was gonna say pains, but I've been able to fix the pains issue by having both like a tablet and a phone, and I would conveniently switch between them whenever I wanted to play thumbs versus fingers. I had more like tiering endurance, just from being able to use all my fingers instead of just only, indexes or only thumbs. It helps a lot, and I got styluses as well. I don't use the styluses that often, but it strains different like muscle groups, which means when I'm using them, I can relax the muscle groups that I would have to do just tapping a screen directly.
And that's pretty interesting because at the moment there is no data link with both devices, so you have to switch like continually transfer. And that's something that some people have tried actually, because they unfortunately can't do one of their own device just on there. So that's pretty cool though, to know that some people are actually trying this device switch strategy. With that being said, the next one is, how has your strategy evolved? So probably think back to your first event and think about now. How has it like evolved? We've kind of touched about your thorough strategy, but what have you gotten better at compared to back in the first event?
Definitely the endurance aspect, and how eating certain foods or drinking certain things has affected my body. For those that don't know, I actually tiered the Happy New Year's event and got top 2. So that was my official like first podium, just weeks after I got into the game. And then after that, I had a lot of downtime because I was waiting for the next Happy Around event, which of course doesn't come till right now as we speak. I spent a lot of that time playing with friends and actually testing myself by staying awake and just eating certain types of foods and drinks and seeing what happens. Trying all sorts of things. Tried energy drinks, tried caffeine, tried like heavy meals, tried light meals, tried protein bars, you name it. After doing all that, it's made me realize these are the foods to avoid, these are the foods not to avoid, to improve my endurance, because that was my main focus. I knew I went to T1, and I knew I wanted to maximize my uptime, so that has been my biggest improvement, the endurance aspect. And it really showed when I started tiering all 3 of those events.
Alright, next question. So now we're gonna go towards a bit of a different avenue, which is more the avenue that I'm in. 3rd place in the D4DJ Groovy Mix Combo Contest. That's very impressive on that. So, with that being said, does the tiering aspect as well help back up like your talent, not just being a tierer, but also a finalist in the combo contest?
That's a very interesting question. Because when I'm tiering, I already know I have to gimp myself. I can't like overexert, right? So I'm already gonna be playing like below even 60% what I would normally play. But the reality is that constantly like hitting notes and playing songs over and over and over in a rhythm game is the best way to improve. It's actually the way you're supposed to improve, through repetition and practice. So even though maybe I'm not going to be playing my best during an event, tiering and hitting notes in the same songs over and over and over and over and over for countless times is actually really good practice, even if I might not be at my peak. Like, my brain will get more and more used to playing the game, just doing that naturally. And when you're doing that for hundreds of hours, that's a natural way to improve. So I will say, I think tiering does help me in that regard. Maybe not like to perfect FC. That's a whole nother like challenge, and you can't really do that during like a tiering setting for more than a couple hours. Realistically, I think. Other than in raid events, I already mentioned how raid events could be really hype, right? Because you can actually do like Synchro Gazer EX for very short periods of time and race other people and like try to do your absolute best. This would be like a mini combo contest setting, basically, you against other folks.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best representation of like something similar, I think.
And also, let's talk about the combo contest as a whole. So, as we know, the committee, aka me and a couple of other peeps, we picked Color Tainted Sorrow, Cyber, and Moonlight Densetsu as qualifiers. You were actually one of the people that played the tiebreaker 2 with Leia, and then you picked 2 songs on your own. So, talk about that experience within some of these songs that were laid on the table in the combo contest.
Right. So I don't really remember the qualifier songs, to be honest. I remember the day I woke up, I just looked at the songs, and then while I was waiting for my room, I went in and practiced all of them. And the one that I couldn't like perfect FC consistently, that's the one I practiced until I was called up. But I know once I got into the picking phase, I of course, I always wanted to go first. I always wanted to show off the Give Me Awesome.
Which was good, because that's actually how you got the lead against, I think, the #1 seed at the time. Because you were playing in the middle seed, I believe, after you got hit within a tiebreaker.
Right. And then after that, it was kind of smooth sailing because I already knew I had the point advantage. I just had to maintain. I remember Desire getting picked. That one's not too bad. So I was glad that one was picked. It could have been much worse, but I think we were still trying to be safe, right? Not show all of our cards.
That's true.
So yeah, that was good.
And then Daddy Mulk was the last one, which was actually you, and not just you. Shadow Snake, I believe,
Yep.
which was #1 seed, picked hard as well. The last person actually picked Experts and was trying to go for that. But in your case, you did not go for the FC or Shoshank. I believe Shoshank. Thank you very much. I can completely mix up the seeds there. But talk to me about the hard strat compared to the expert strat that one of the other competitors were going for. Was it Shoshank?
Right. After I saw the Daddy Mulk pick, you only got I think 30 seconds to pick your difficulty. I was staring at the screen. I'm like, oh man, I've only played this chart 4 times, and I'm like, wait, I have played this chart more times, but on hard. And so I thought, okay, well, what are the costs versus the reward? And the reward is that I can get an FC for sure, and that's all that matters in combo contest.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was the smart move. EX, there was no way I could even get close to an FC, and I've only played that EX chart maybe 4 times, so the readability would have been an issue too. And I believe backspin assists were not allowed, so I couldn't even go that route even if I wanted to. I believe it was very smart for who was it? Shank?
I think Shank picked the song, but Shadow Snake was the #1 seed too. So you're trying to read I think you're trying to read Shadow Snake because you probably expect to go expert, but I think you were surprised with that person playing the hard pick, I believe.
Yeah, I think they did a good job analyzing that as well, and deciding on that strategy. Because I think up to that point, nobody really considered picking hard in the contest, right?
Yeah, because there's no bonus compared to Garpa Cup, I believe, has a bonus for hard. Because of that, like, expert's like the only way to get bonus. So that's theoretically, I mean, to be fair, that's still a good strategy because you can just go slap hard. If you already have a thorough gap, you don't have to worry about thoroughly others unless they're going like super expert, which you probably couldn't read, I believe. I didn't know if you were trying to get like a card read of them going hard, but still a very good strategy to utilize as well, and it worked out in your favor because you moved on in the finals.
Right.
The finals was interesting. You picked a song that was quite slow. I think this is the slowest song out of all of them. I think someone also picked "What Are You," but I believe that this song's slower. You can correct me on that.
I want to say yes. Honest, happy a word is a slightly slower. I think honestly, I wanted to pick "Give Me Awesome" again. That's just my go-to chart.
I don't think you were able.
But-
You were going to anyways, because I don't think there's repetition allowed in top nine and finals. But still pretty good though, because this is connected to Mooney, which we'll get to.
Yes. So I was glad I got to at least play through that one and got my perfect FC, which I knew I could do.
Which
I did throw off
also
one player.
Farley got a PFC, and Who got one note missed, I believe, which was like very at that point was very close. And then we saw the other two picks, which was one of the Monster Hunter songs, and then You and Owen, which was the one that Farley almost PFC'd.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah. And so yeah, what's your thorough thoughts about like what you saw in the finals out of all these three group songs?
Well, knowing Farley and our interactions with each other, I basically already knew what my expectations for him were. He was either gonna like get one grade on everything, or he was gonna perfect FC them. So he managed to kind of show both sides there. So yeah, he's just like almost the perfect rhythm game player.
Get to the next questions. Future plans. Let's talk about what do you plan to do with coming up? Do you plan to try to dominate Ian 2? Do you plan to continue on and dominate Thorough JP? Do you is there any specific event that you kind of want to see? And also, what do you see in Groovy Mix altogether? That's just some general question. You can just answer any of these questions.
Yeah, sure. So I don't actually plan to do anything with the EN version, which might make some people sad, but I have decided that's the route I want to take.
That's fine.
Already committed, a bunch of resources to JP, and I have been enjoying it so far. So I'll just stick with it. It looks like the language barrier is just like a kind of a minor thing at this point.
Yeah.
And in terms of future plans on what I want to do on JP, since I already have 3 top 1 titles, what could I possibly do beyond that? And I thought, realistically, I would start saving up and preparing to do 4 in a row. Because I'm just that crazy.
Yeah.
So that is a real like consideration I'm thinking about now. 4 events in a row would require about a month and a couple days worth of time. I could possibly use vacation time for it, or I could try to weigh the battlefield and decide, okay, which events should I take off, and which events can I still like get away with while working? Because believe it or not, 2 of my T1s I had to do with some active amount of work. So depending on the event and how busy it is, you can gauge your opponents and say, oh, I might not need to do any days off for this because my competition won't be that fierce.
Okay.
So that's what I'm just thinking.
I'm excited to see what you have thoroughly. Let's get a filler question out of the way. Why Mooney?
Why Mooney?
So why Mooney?
Well, it literally was like love at first sight for me when I watched the Love Hug Groovy video, getting introduced to all the characters. It was a very easy way to like get a visual and a theme around like every single character. So I watched that the first time I got into D4DJ before I installed the game, to decide if there was a character I really love, because in gacha it's all about the waifus, right? So that became the one, and so I have stuck with it ever since. She's very in terms of personality and character, she is very like very awesome. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to say that.
That's what someone said in the chat too.
Yeah, she's super relatable to a lot of people as well. She's a pretty endearing friend. She loves social media. She'll post her things on it and will like back on all of her stuff, because she just loves it when people love her. And Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Super adorable, super cute, and I'm glad this event. Like, I love the Mooney card from this event too.
So if you get one of the, so if the Nochio plush is ever out, you're gonna be the first ones in line for that.
Oh, of course.
All right, good. There you go, everyone. All right. Lastly, do you want anyone wants a shout out? You did give some shout outs about MiyuBot, the D4DJ public Discord server, which I recommend as well. I'll probably do a video on that about resources you can go take a look at. Any other shout outs that you want to give? There's a lot of your fans in chat at the moment too, so...
Well, I appreciate the entire D4DJ community, both on the English side and the JP side. Like, it's been a lot of fun. I didn't think I would get involved on the JP side as much with the whole, like, Twitter followers, like, following back, like, but it's been a lot more fun than I originally expected. In terms of shouting out specific people, Hifumi was the one that turned me into a whale for this game, so I mean, I gotta shout him out. He is the honorary whale of this game as well. He also has 3 top 1 titles. And I mean, all the guys I hang out with on the tiering server.
Let me check if I can do this. There we
Harley,
go. And that's bad.
Harley is such a dang like cool guy to hang out with. Very intelligent guy as well. He helps us do a lot of science. SMG as well from the Taiwanese community, and also Que for making MiyuBot and getting me more involved in the programming like stuff. You like combining our talents together. Yeah, and there's plenty of other folks. Like I could, the list goes on and on. Like everybody has been great and helped me in so many ways. So I appreciate all the support and hope I can continue being a part of this wonderful community.
Open up the chat. I'll just answer whatever the first questions I have, unless you want a specific question to answer. You can go back, but Sig secretly loves Haruna. This is a hard-hitting question. This is Sig secretly loves Haruna more than Mooney. Why does he act tsundere? From Philolia, I can't pronounce. So.
Well, I definitely know who answered that question. They're a Haruna fan, and well, I definitely love Mooney more than Haruna. I'm sorry. Haruna. What's interesting about Haruna though is that Haruna is just as quirky and weird as Mooney can be sometimes. So I think that's like a very interesting like connection, if you will. Yeah.
All right.
Whoever that person is, I'm sure we both would get along well.
Okay. This is an interesting question. I'm sorry about the other thing, but what does Sig think about the other units? That's a pretty good from Kotobuki Pin.
See, originally, I thought that every unit was like pretty much gonna be just like some carbon copy of like a Bandura unit, but after like really reading all the character bios and like looking at all the content, like I can't say that anymore, and it's definitely not true by any means. I think every single unit is really cool. My favorite, of course, is Happy Around. It's just the bias in me. They're just super fun to be around.
Fair enough.
I love their music.
I'm like the oddball. I'm the oddball in the community. I just like every unit. I actually don't have a favorite, which is very surprising because a lot of people are like, "Hey, who's your favorite?" And for me, I just like all of them. I love all. It's basically because I'm an EDM fan and I just like all 6 styles because they're all pretty unique, thoroughly. That's just my thing, but it's kind of cool to see you have a very great aspect seeing all the talent within, because it's like this. Sometimes I feel like I want to listen to a different style of music from this unit, and then like, okay, I want to go change it up. We'll go into this unit, which is pretty nice within the D4DJ scale. Question here from one of our moderators, the Honkinator, aka Twintail. Do you have any advice in regards to being financially responsible with mobile game endeavors?
Yes, actually. A lot of times what I do is I make an actual fund for the game, and I set 2 big rules on it. The first rule is anytime I want to like play with the game and pay for it, I have to use the money from that fund, so it's just like a separate account within the account, and I can only use funds from there. And the second rule is I am only allowed to put so many dollars into it at one time. And so what I would do, and I did this during Bandori days too, is I would say, okay, I'm putting in, I think I allotted myself like up to 20% of my paycheck. I would build up that over time and then be like, okay, if I'm not spending it, then it's just going to keep accumulating for any game I play. It doesn't have to be like a Bandori specific fund or D4DJ specific fund, but it does mean that you're physically limiting the amount of money that can go into it at one time. Eventually I would increase the cap, which shows signs of getting into spending way more money than you should. But to keep myself financially in check, I already made sure that my savings and whatnot was all done before I even considered money for the game. It took a lot of budgeting and time. Like, the money I used for D4DJ came from a lot of years of saving up by not using it in other gacha games.
Alright, and then I guess 1 or 2 more questions. This is an interesting one from Majalk BR. How much gems can you spend on T1 for T1 on average? Because I know some events that is more easy to tier than others, but I want to plan myself to the EN version. I also know global player base can be low compared to the JP version.
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I think I forgot to mention the can counts I wanted to earlier. Top 1 in general will spend anywhere from 2,500 cans to up to the high 4,500 amount, which the Four Moonies event, which was the mermaid with the bunny girls, that was a high one for me. That was 4,300 cans.
Wow.
And yeah, in terms of how much that is money cost wise, most events expect to pay at least $3,000 in raw dollar resources. This is why saving up resources is important. And what I actually do recommend is every time there's those discount cans, you just buy them anyways, because at some point you're gonna have to buy more cans anyways. You might as well get them while they're discounted and build them up over time. I actually only spent $1,000 in resources for $5,000 worth of cans within like 3 months of this game, because they just offer those all those cheaper like opportunities for you. If you get plat every month, and if you get the discount cans they offer like every event every day, and if you get the discount gem packs, like that all adds up to a lot of savings. So that's what I would recommend if you're trying to do it. Then you only spend a couple thousand instead of like 5,000.
Oh yeah, and I guess I'll finish off with one question of my own actually. This is at least coming from myself. What do you do on the downtime of no events, basically?
So right now, I'm actually trying to fix my in-game profile. I was trying to create what I call a Mooney profile, where the number of FCs in all my counts needs to be a number with 62 at the end. That way, it represents Mooney. So that is what I aim to do in my downtime. If I wasn't doing that though, I would probably go through and just play songs I love. Generally, I just have a small, like, 3 to 4 hour session where I just play songs every day that I love. It's very fun.
I was also referring to a little bit more of the, what do you do in, like, a gap between an intermission of events, for example? Because there's, like, nothing you can really there's nothing as much you can really do if you're waiting in terms of events. But sometimes there could be some utilization of strategy. Like, should you rather try to grind stuff beforehand, get the gems ready, etc.?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of preparation you can do. Once the event banner is announced and you kind of know what characters and attributes are coming up, then you can set up your team, There's actually this cool little trick you can do where you make all the like bonds of all your characters, the little like relationship meter that fills up after every song.
Yeah.
If you set that up to where every card's the same, then you only get like one pop-up instead of a bunch while you're like playing the game. So that could help too if you're like tiering an event. Other side activities might include like gathering up gems you haven't gathered yet. Maybe you might try and level up certain cards, like flesh out your teams. Just preparing team building wise. I know unless you're like a whale, most of the time you have to figure out some like compensation, right? Do I run like a 140% team that's weaker, or a 120% because they have like maxed out stats or something, right? That usually is some calculation you're gonna have to do some math to figure out for.
All right, cool. With that being said, that should be it. Right now I'm gonna go pull up all of your stuff so I can post to them in chat. I know a lot of you kind of follow already, Sig, but if you want, you can go say your socials too. If you want to go check this out, for the new people here, because I believe there's some new people in chat that don't know what's going on here. So, do you want to go drop your socials here?
I could. Sure.
Yeah, I'm typing them in at least at the moment. So you can go explain which socials you have, and I'll just plop them down.
Okay. Fastest way to get in touch with me is my Discord, which is SigonaSR2, hashtag 6262 Mooney. That is definitely the fastest way to reach me. If you have any questions or concerns, I would be more than happy to reply. Yeah, if I'm not tiering an event, also I'm always down to do some multis as well. If you need to, like, if you're tiering or something as well.
Okay. I'll drop here's your Twitter. This is the one that I've been showing apart on the stream, and then your Twitch, because he does stream on Twitch at the very late hours of night in California. But anyways,
unfortunately, I am in Korea, so that does mean I play during JP hours, actually.
Oh, and that's a pretty thorough advantage too as well. That's what some people have tried to utilize as a strategy, I believe, is that, well, they even sometimes have like the assumption that, oh, well, JP's sleeping at this. I remember someone talking to someone that's like, oh, well, JP sleeps at this. But no, they're even tiering at like the wee hours of the night too. So you don't underestimate JP as well. That's what some people thoroughly do. But I think that's pretty much it. Unless you want to drop anything else in the chats. Other than that,
I'll just give my 2 cents and say thank you so much for putting this on. Like, I think you did a great job organizing it, but I think you did a good job. So
thank you.
Props to you.
I'm trying to really build my name as a content creator. I'm like one of the very hugely dedicated to streaming this, and especially when the English version comes out. So I definitely want to try to see if I can get some insights from the community too, because you'll learn a lot of different things. Like, now I learned that there is now good patterns I can potentially show off within some visuals too, with permission, of course, because I love to give credit where credit is due. So I'm excited to go use this for my future content, and I especially am glad that a lot of you thoroughly enjoyed this. With that being said, I do appreciate you coming here, Sig, and I am excited to potentially, if anything, you can join in also in the future lobbies as well, coming in, because I do know that you would come into my lobbies at some times, just to show off, and I'm excited also to do potentially another interview later on as well, to probably give some reflections, because at that point you might be like, how many T1s potentially, but we'll see. Other than that, I do appreciate, thank you chat, this was our biggest viewership of D4DJ Groovy Mix today, and it especially helps. Thank you all to Sig fans, you know, you all deserve a round of applause. Thank you chats for coming in as well. Do you have any final thoughts, at least on your end?
No, thank you for having me, and good luck to everybody.